Hey, everyone. Welcome to the latest podcast episode. And I have a great treat here today. I think anyone that's an entrepreneur, existing, new, wants to do side hustles, wants to kind of make a pivot from corporate to owning a business. This guy right here, Josh Wilson, is the guy. He owns multiple small businesses. He helps people buy and leave W-2 job and just scale that way as well, man. So Josh, man, thank you for coming on. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you having me, Terry. It's an exciting space. I feel like we're in just a really neat time in our in this cycle of generation and age and opportunity. And so, yeah, really appreciate you bringing me on and being able to just share more of what I think is just a generational opportunity for our generation.
Cool, man. Yeah. So first and foremost, guys, Josh popped up on my feed on TikTok. So I was like, damn. Funny thing was his product. I've seen it for years, and I found out he's the owner and built it out. So I feel like he can help you guys out as far as buying small businesses. There's a baby boomers going on, right, for the next 10 years, I think.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Transferring wealth, as they call it. He's one of those gurus that know how to buy, sell, I think, buy, sell, do everything in between to acquire a business. He's up there with Cody Sanchez. He knows all that stuff inside and out. But Josh, first and foremost, man, let people know who you are and where you came from and just how you got started into the space.
Yeah, I think one of the first things I like to share with people is I'm nobody special. A lot of us that have bought and sold companies, I think they just learned a different path and then were brave enough to kind of put themselves out there and take that chance. I've been broke multiple times. I try to tell people like I didn't come from money. I was raised, so I was very poor growing up. And so you don't have to be rich. You don't have to have hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. I am like a lot of others. I went into thinking I needed to go get a degree in an education, put my head down at the corporate job and work my way up, and did that for 20 years. I worked at some really cool companies and was really blessed to have some really cool mentors. And started my career in Dallas, Texas at Southwest Airlines. Worked at Hilton, worked at MGM Resorts. We had a 1 year stint in Vegas that my wife would like to sooner forget because she's not really that kind of person. We moved to Southern California. I worked for Panasonic Avionics. I worked for AWS at Amazon. So worked at a lot of different corporations. But the whole time I was doing that, I felt like I was chasing the wrong thing. I was chasing the promotions that really didn't really come, or the validation that didn't really come, or the money. And I think that what really interestingly, I just was not one to play the corporate, play the politics and the bureaucrat and play the kiss ass, so to speak, of trying to move up. And I had a mentor at Panasonic that was just like, Josh, you're not going to get the validation or the recognition that you're seeking without just doing it on your own and really doing your own thing. And that was my boss that said that. And so he was very inspirational to me starting my own IT consulting company while I worked for him at Panasonic. But because of that, it really started this entire light bulb of me going and doing my own thing. And so, yeah, I mean, it was through some of those learnings also was a lot of experience and education around, man, starting from scratch is really hard. Really starting it from the ground up is difficult. You don't have anything like an existing business does. I had to go out and get my own customers. I had to put a team together. I had to market my own product. It wasn't existing. No one knew who I was. And so because of that, I did well in my IT consulting firm with people that knew me, but people that didn't know me, it was like, I don't know who you are, Josh. Like, how am I going to give you this money or even do this project with you? I don't know what you deliver.
Yeah.
And so about 4 years ago, I had started the company 7 years ago. And about 4 years ago, I was doing this was a side hustle. I was doing it while I had my corporate job. But about 4 years ago, it had done really well with a couple of people and then it just went dry. And so I was sitting on cash saying, I've got to make this money make money, or I'm going to have to go back and work again at a corporate job. And that's when I came across social media that was talking about this, buying businesses, regular people buying businesses, using lenders to finance 80, 90% of the deals, being able to use investors to finance even the other portion of that down payment. And I was intrigued. I wasn't really sure or clear on how that path was, but I was like, man, buying something that's already set up sounds really nice. And that really just started this entire pathway, which was okay, I know I need help. Information was really fragmented. It still is in the market today. It's just like you can see some things on YouTube. You and I mentioned there's some things on social media. There's only like two or three books, and one is fairly new. There's really only like a single book or two even about this that's not private equity type books that are really technical or very scientific, very difficult for the average person like myself to read. And so it was just really challenging to kind of get more information about it until I came across Ben Kelly's Acquisition Ace Group. And it provided a curriculum, it provided coaches, and really kind of held your hand through this step of the process. And got on the call with a sales rep and was like, man, this is a lot of a commitment. It's thousands of dollars. Like, obviously, if I'm going to do it, I've got to go all in and do it. And it's funny because now, multiple years later, I would have paid 10 times what I paid for it then, because my entire life is different. My entire life has been changed. And now I coach people. Now I help people. And just one of the most rewarding things that you can possibly do in life is to watch someone go from, I really want to change my life, to actually seeing them do it in the flesh, and having a hand in that. It's just, I've found my calling, to be able to do this for other people. Buying businesses is definitely super empowering. Helping someone else go do it too, and watch them go through that pathway and trajectory and have a hand in it. It's just, it's an unreal experience. And it's what created my passion for SMB Market. It's what's created my passion as a coach to get on social media and help even more people. Cause I'm like, how can I reach where the people are at that are wanting things like this or wanting a new pathway, but not necessarily knowing how to get there?
Hmm. No, no, hands down. Josh, damn, man. In the beginning, you mentioned like Southwest, AWS, IT consultant. Is your background computer or is it just management? Like what exactly were you doing?
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't. I was a revenue analyst at travel and hospitality. So, like airlines and hotels, funny enough, like they do that dynamic pricing.
Yeah.
And so I was one of those analysts sitting behind a computer going, prices, for the flight need to be higher or lower based on demand. So it did create the analytical side of me. I didn't start managing until about 6 years after I got into an entry level role. So I do have a technology background, worked for a lot of technology companies, but I would say that like my most senior role was a senior director of analytics, senior director of IT. But that was really, especially in the last like 10 years of my career, it was about how can we use data to make recommendations for business owners or people that I was working with in marketing or sales to make better decisions using data. Uh, so it was a very natural progression that I started to get into consulting, because it was, well, look at what we're doing, Josh, and make recommendations on what we should be doing and then go build it. And so it was a very natural progression, which has benefited me quite a bit in buying businesses, because now I go in and think, okay, what could they be doing differently? What could I do to improve it? And as a coach, it helps even more, because now when you're a consultant, you really do learn a lot of teaching, because you have to teach the business side. And from an IT perspective, I also have to teach the IT people in business terms and then business people in technical terms, but make it sound understandable and relatable. And with that, then comes an understanding that I can't teach at a level of understanding that I have. I need to teach at a level of understanding that my students have, which are barely basically just entry into buying a business. I only know what I've been seeing on social media. And so you have all these preconceived ideas and you're trying to mold that into, well, what are your goals and what are your needs? And then really identifying based on that, what we then should be recommending to each student. So it's a very personalized experience, when talking about buying a business. And that early days of my analytical career really actually helps me become an even better coach.
100% because you can relate and talk in different aspects to make sure people understand. So that's a great point. Josh, you mentioned, or all right, you joined Ben Kelly's program. You went all in. How long ago after that then did you buy a business? Because you have to stay
Yeah.
focused, right? You got
Yeah.
to be
Oh
committed.
yeah.
You got to go every day at it.
You do. And you and have talked about that. I'll caveat with what I'm about to share with you, but with before I joined his group, I had been searching for 2 years, and really what I thought I was going to buy was another IT consulting firm. Like I would just go buy customers. That was the initial thought. The challenge with that was I didn't. I mean, I now realize that these IT consulting firms were just such key man risk, meaning the seller was really the business. A lot like my consulting firm. I mean, if I left the business, the relationships were gone, the work was gone. There was no work. And So I really didn't have confidence. I kept looking at these deals that didn't seem to fit. I didn't really know how I should be thinking about this. And I didn't have the confidence of what should I be saying with these sellers? How should I be building these relationships? And then what do I need to know in order to even feel confident enough to make an offer on a business? And that's really when I got across Acquisition Ace on social media. And I said, look, I think I understand what I'm looking for, but I really need that support layer to get me across the finish line. So 2 years of searching, I joined the group. 2 months later, I'm under contract. And it was not for an IT consulting firm. What I really started to think about, and being in a community is what really helps, because when you're doing it alone, you have only your perspective. You might have other experiences, but you're really, so many of my students now are like, I'm looking at these industries to buy in. I say, why? And they'll say, well, I just have heard that on social media. And I'm like, but what about how it relates to you? And what I came across after I joined the group was I started to get a lot of perspectives that you don't necessarily have to buy in the exact industry that you work in, but what relatable or translatable skills do you have that could work in other industries? And so I said, okay, well, I had an IT consulting firm, but what have I consulted for? Well, I consulted for manufacturing and marketing companies and CPG and retail companies. And so that just that perspective and that guidance from the community, I bought a traditional marketing company that had no digital. I mean, like almost the farthest end from technology you could have bought. They did traditional billboards, TV, radio ads, brand design, but very, very little digital. But the numbers behind the business were strong. The company had been around 20 plus years. The staff had all been there 7 to 10 years. And so what I really learned in that first deal was it's way more about the bones of the business, and then what value I could bring into it, which was this is a traditional marketing company. What if I brought in digital? What if I added Google, Facebook, Meta ads, digital analytics, and all these different things that I know marketers want, but this company didn't even offer? And
Mhm.
so I again started more with what was my goal? And my goal was to be able to supplement my income so that I didn't have to have the IT consulting firm and I didn't ever have to go back to a W 2 job. So I had a number that I needed to hit.
Right.
And I worked backwards from that number to say, okay, this is the size company I needed to be looking for. And because of that, then it was really, okay, well, what are other variables in a business that I need to be looking for that really lower my risk? And SBA puts these out in reports. And so the SBA Small Business Administration, it's the government backed program that sponsors your local lenders to help finance these deals up to 80, 90%. And they put out these incredible reports that talk about specific variables that businesses have that actually lower risk. So the length of operations, the more that business, and it makes sense, right? The more that business has been in operations, the lower the risk. In fact,
Mhm.
businesses that have been in operation for 5 years or more have a 50% less default rate than businesses within their 0 to 5 years. And that makes sense. You've got customers that have been around a long time. You got employees that have been there longer. You have a better brand established when you've been around. And so I thought, well, if it's 5 years or more, what about 10, 15, 20 years in business? And so I really built what they call a buy box that was really just based around how does each one of these variables lower my risk, because it's already a risk, right? We're taking a lot of debt on. We might even be bringing on investors. So how can I get that risk, that default chance, to as low as it possibly can? And I've been able to identify about 10 variables that are directly correlated to lowering that risk. And I've out of my students, out of two almost 200 people that have closed on deals, I think two people I've had issues, and it's because they didn't follow their buy box. They really kind of went outside of their buy box. But the other 198 are crushing it and are able to leave their W two and are able to get that time and financial freedom. And so I know that was kind of a long winded answer of like the getting started,
No, that's good, man.
but
That's
I do
good.
tell people, that I got lucky. 2 months in and I'm under contract. I tell students, it's funny that like a lot of life is very translatable or even relatable in a lot of ways. And I equate finding a business to finding a spouse or a partner. You could go find one tomorrow. You could go to your local dive bar. You could find one tomorrow. Would it last? And would it be successful? Maybe not. Maybe, but the chances are probably lower. But if you're patient, and you're really looking and focusing on what you can be doing as a person to get really good about just yourself, and you're patient about finding the right person, and you're diligent, but you consistently look, you're going to then find a partner that can last a lifetime. And I think businesses are the same way. We don't actually know when the right deal is going to come into our lap. Could be 2 months. I've seen students that take 6 months. I've seen students that have been in my programs for a year and have not found one. But it's because they're very specific about what they want and they're not willing to compromise on that. And I tell people the best deals you do are actually the ones you don't do, because you've been able to cross that, set that boundary and not cross it. And ultimately, I think that's what breeds success is you just stay patient. And I think people get into this because they want to leave their W-2, so they're very motivated to get
Mhm.
out quickly. And I say, but look, you're young. I mean, Gary Vee, the great media influencer, talks about people in their 40s and 50s even being young because you got 20 or 30 years to play. So these kids that come into my program that are 20 and 30 years, I'm like, look, focus it on like this. If you can learn this, and it's a complex thing to learn buying businesses, but once you've learned it, and mostly it's complex because the information's not in one place, but once you've learned it, you can now go do this for 50 years. So maybe you don't leave your W 2 in the first 6 months or the first year, but I can promise you it will happen, especially if you stay determined and persistent. And then you get to do it for the rest of your life. But the first deal can either snowball in a good way or a bad way. And you want it to snowball in a good way because then you can go buy deal 2, 4, and 5 and not have to worry about deal 1 that you're still having to pick up the pieces because it was a bad deal.
No, I gotcha. You mentioned buy box. I've seen you post that on social media. How can someone like? Does your platform offer the buy box type of feel for it? The
Yeah.
SMB market.
Yeah, I think it's critical to be able to help people understand that when you have the idea that you want to buy a business, the very first step most people take is they just get on Biz Buy Sell and they start searching. And I just think that is like it's like going out into the dating market without really thinking about what you're looking for in a partner. So you're going to get all kinds of things and you're not going to have clarity of thought. And so what's really important to me that I teach my students is you have to be it's a roadmap for your road trip. And if you go on a road trip without that map, you're going to end up all over the place and you're going to feel lost. But if you're really clear about what you're looking for, which is the buy box, it's your 10 or 15 filters, your variables that's important to you and how you see risk. And that really creates a lot of clarity. And so we have a template in SMB Market. I've got a 1 hour call that I've got in the curriculum that's exactly me going through my buy box and my why behind what I've chosen. And I tell people, like, your buy box can maybe start out like mine because it's helpful to see how other people look and think about deals. But as you start to look at businesses, you should ask yourself, well, how do I feel about this specific variable? The seller is doing 60 hours a week, or there's a lot of family members involved, or there's one customer that makes up 30%. If you feel like that's risk, it should be in your buy box. Now you should say, hey, customer concentration, I don't want any one customer making up more than 20% of revenue. It's now a filter in my buy box. And that's really how the buy box evolves. Like my IT consulting idea that I thought I would buy an IT consulting firm. And then that evolved into, well, now I think I can really acquire in any industry because it was really more about the framework of the business, how many years it had been around, what the employees look like, the managers, what the seller's doing day to day, what's the long term horizon of that industry. Is it in a business location geography that's growing, that is opportunistic? There's certain states that are booming in growth right now. Go be in those states and you've got organic new traffic coming in every week, month, and year that in a state where a lot of people are leaving might be harder. And so I really try to help people understand you got to create the buy box. And we had a template, the video, super easy to fill out. And then the second thing that a lot of people don't think about is what's going to happen after you've bought a business. Most people don't think of it, but I call it a post close strategy. You've got to actually think about that before you even begin searching. And most people won't. But when you get on that first seller call and you've got to position yourself why you are the right person to buy it, if you can't paint a clear picture for the seller of what's going to happen after you've closed, they have no confidence that you're the right person. So it's really important that you also identify and for yourself define what is that post close strategy for you as an individual. And, a lot of people jump to, well, I want to be absentee. And I'm like, where energy goes, money flows. So don't be absentee thinking something's going to be successful. You can you can be what I would call a strategic owner, which is the role I like to play. That's 5 hours to 10 hours a week. And it's really hyper focused on critical components of where I add value. So I talk to my managers every week. I look over the financials, kind of the back end numbers, and I have really specific discussions about how we're looking as a business. But I'm not involved in the day to day decisions. That's very clearly defined for me. It's also something that now I bring into my conversations with sellers because not every seller wants that kind of owner. Some sellers really want you to be the hands on owner operator, and that's
Mhm.
fine. That's not me. And that's my first date with this seller. It's not a fit. I go back to the
Yeah.
market, right? And
Okay.
so I want people to define, and we do this on the call inside of SMB Market, really define what does that post-close strategy look like for you in the first year and how hands-on are you? Because some people have more time than others. I've got a lot of students that have kids and they're like, I don't really want to ever do more than 10 hours. Okay. Well, if that's the case, your strategy and what you're looking for in a business is going to be different than mine, where I'm okay being a bit more active in the first 3 months to learn, but the seller is going to stay on and they're going to stay on while I'm learning. And then they're also going to train the new people I hire. So I need them longer than maybe someone that like they're okay being hands on owner operator for 2 years.
Right.
They don't maybe need the seller as long. Maybe they need the seller for only 3 months. So it's really critical that you define the buy box parameters of what you're looking for and then what your strategy is post close. So now every business you analyze, I call it your North Star. We all have the North Star of like, what is our ideal dream? You close your eyes and you're like, I own 5 businesses and I'm doing what? And how much am I doing that task? So for me, it's I'm doing 5 hours and I'm doing these critical finance and HR leadership tasks. Well, every business, so you've got your North Star. Every business is going to be different on where it sits in their situation. And there's going to be that gap between your North Star and then every business. Some businesses will be closer to your North Star, some businesses will be further away. Then I teach people, how do we close that gap? Well, you close that gap with either your time. After you close on the business, you're going to put in your time to get it closer to your North Star, or you're going to have people that are inside of that business help you close it by promoting them, asking them to do more, or you're going to have the seller help close that gap. The seller is going to stay on longer. The seller is going to take on some of those roles. And then you have the cash flow to be able to do those three things. So now I try to paint people a very clear picture. You've got your buy box of what you're looking for. You've got your post close strategy, which is your North Star. Now every deal you analyze is, well, can I solve that gap? And is the juice worth the squeeze to close that gap in the amount of time I'm willing to commit to it with enough cash flow to be able to do it? And then I try to make sure that it becomes very clear for someone that's analyzing it. If you can see a clear pathway to doing those things and closing that gap with enough cash flow, it's a business you need to pursue 100 miles an hour.
No, I like it. Josh with the deets. Josh with the deets. You mentioned you have 5 businesses, right? As of today. How involved are you? You said 5 to 10 hours for each one, or is it just all collectively?
Yeah, it's a good question. Each one of those ebbs and flows. And so each one of those, I have leadership meetings with all of my team. And so that normally is a group call. And then you've got my CEO conversation. So that's 2 hours per week per business. That can fluctuate with a lot of people. I mean, I tell people you can do that biweekly. If you want to be a little bit less hands on, you could do that once a month. You don't have to, but I love to keep a pulse. So it's always about how much of a pulse on the business do you want to keep? How much is that business currently changing and evolving? And then what value do you add? I don't want to have meetings just to have one. So if we've got a call scheduled with the team, we're like, hey, we don't have any new updates. No worries. Let's cancel it. And we don't have to have it. And it doesn't start out at 5 to 10 hours. I mean, for me, most of these businesses, it's going to be more than 30 to 40 hours. And it just depends on how long, what's that seller doing? What do I need to know in that business to be a strategic owner? And then how quickly can I close that gap? And so about each company is about is about 5 hours to 10 hours. I'll have some weeks where it'll be an hour. Some weeks will be less than that. It really I think the beautiful thing about ownership is If I've got family coming to visit us from Texas next week, I've got a clean slate except for my weekly SMB Market call. So I've got 1 hour of work for the next 10 days. And it's not me asking permission. I think that's one of the most beautiful things about ownership is I'm not asking for permission. I'm simply telling the team, I've got family coming. I'm blocking that time off. I won't be available. If it's an emergency, call me. If it's not,
Hmm.
but I'm going to be with my family. That's one of the reasons I did it was so that I could
Hmm.
have that freedom that if I needed to focus and get something done inside the company, I could. And the second I didn't have that need, I can always pull that back.
Okay, cool. So 5 businesses. That's crazy. How long did it take you to get the 5 businesses?
4 years. Yeah. So from 4 years ago to today, I think what would surprise you is I have partners that are coaches in Acquisition Ace that own more than me and have done more than me. I'm 40. I've got multiple people that teach inside of Acquisition Ace that are not 30 yet and that own more than 7 different companies. Now they may have majority in some, majority ownership, meaning over 50% ownership. They've got some businesses they own only 10 to 15%. It's not really my model. I like to own majority in every company that I have just because there's a lot more squeeze in the juice. There's a lot more meat on the bone, so to speak, when you own the majority.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you do take on more risk, right? Like you're going to be the bigger risk taker. But I have no problem with that. I have no problem with risk. I mean, and so, yeah, I mean, I think it's all about, what are your goals? And so for me, I want to do more quality over quantity. I mean, I'm always inspired by the Warren Buffetts, the Tony Robbins. These people own hundreds of companies, but they're not the
Right.
people actively involved in them, and they're not actively in the day to day of any business. They're more about leading people that do that. And so that's a big focus for me is, one, I want to make sure that, kind of my goals are hit. And my goals now have very little to do with money. It's about, well, how many other people's lives can I help into this same ballpark in this environment that I've been able to get in because people helped me get there.
Gotcha. Dang, Josh. So you owe 5 businesses, majority owner. Are these all SBA loans, seller financing? Like, how do you have the structure? Any investors? I'm curious.
Yeah. Yeah. So the first deal I didn't use with investors. And then the second, and really that was because I didn't even know. I mean, I think so many people don't realize that there are people out there that don't want to be on the loan. They don't want their name on the loan. They just want to be passive. They've got extra cash and they want to park it somewhere and they're tired of parking it in stocks or crypto or real estate. They want to see real cash flow. And one of the things that you've probably seen in some of my videos is this: if you find investors, and I teach this in the class because most people are like, well, how do you even do that? I didn't know how to do it 2 years ago, and now I've not done any deals without investors.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's just about understanding what investors want to see, where to find them, and then how to talk to them. And so every deal that I do since deal two has investors. The biggest deal that I've done to date was I did a $4 million. So I've got my steel fabrication shirt
I
on
was
right
gonna
here.
ask
This
you.
is
I was gonna ask you. Yeah.
yeah.
So
So this is a 75-year-old company, steel fabrication business in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. We're doing around 8 million in revenue for the last several years, almost 2 million in profit. And the business was asking price. They didn't have an asking price, so I came up with my valuation. I was pretty aggressive and offered 4 million. 10% of that's 400,000. I didn't have 400,000, and so I went to the pavement and pounded the pavement and raised $400,000. I came up with 40 grand of my own money and bought this business with most of it being SBA. So 80% was SBA. Actually, US Bank was the lender, and then 10% seller note. So 10% owner financing. And then the other 10%, the 400,000 was done with investors. Once I was able to do that, it's now, wow, I can buy businesses with very little money up front. I can use my cash to go invest in other people's deals so I can diversify, all the while still staying majority in my businesses where I don't have to put in the cash. And it's a win win for the investors because my investors get paid back in 2 years and then they get proceeds of the profit forever. And we're already looking at, we bought this for 4 million 2 years ago. I'm getting approached by brokers in the 8 to 9 million asking price range. And so we could sell right now, but I have no interest in selling right now because I think that I can turn it into a 15 to $20 million company and buy more of these steel businesses, which is what people would call a roll-up strategy. And I think I found a niche that's, again, it's a lot of people are like, Steel. How did you get into steel fabrication?" And again, it comes back from that mentality of my buy box was more about the bones of the business than the direct industry. It was in a state that's growing like crazy. It was a 75-year-old company. So you talk about recession proof. It's been through about 5 recessions, in 75
Yeah.
years. Great, great team. There's 30 employees. There was multiple managers, multiple supervisors. And it really was a great fit of it's in an area that is growing so much. There it is a need, even though people might think, well, you're building rails and stairs and fencing, but you're in an area that's adding so many more people than they have infrastructure for, that you've got new schools, new hospitals, new churches, new buildings going up every week. And so it's a hugely dynamic market. And that's really helping offset the fact that globally, we might be seeing slowdowns in certain things, but if you're in the right area and there's enough population pushing that demand, you can really see some incredible swings. So that was structured 80% SBA. And that's about most of my deals. I'm going to use SBA for as much as I can. You will get to a point, and I tell a lot of my students, you'll get to a point where you max out in an industry. So SBA has a $5 million limit on industries. So if
Oh,
you're
industry.
buying multiple business in that same industry, but you can go outside of that. So I could go get 5 million for an accounting firm, and that's okay. But if I go get another steel business, I've already maxed out my SBA limit on steel. And so there's other lenders though. And again, why you join communities is so you can follow in footsteps of someone a couple of years ahead of you. And it's a blueprint that's easily followable. So I now follow a blueprint that's being done by bigger groups than I am around using commercial and conventional lenders. So you will get maxed out on SBA. There's these other lenders that will do it that's beyond SBA.
Okay.
And so that, one of the beautiful things about the community is you don't have to go. I did all my own sourcing on my first deal. I called 20 different banks. I'm talking, trying to figure out who the right people are to talk to. I don't have an attorney. I don't have a financial auditor, which you need to have for each of these deals. You join a community, all that's already there for you. We have all the lenders, all the attorneys. All you need to do is pick which one you want based on how much you're willing to spend, and you've got it right there available for you. So the acceleration of just time saving. And so every deal that I do now, coming back to that full circle, but every deal I do will have investors,
Mhm.
and then I'm also investing in other people's deals as well.
Josh is about to take over, guys. Yeah, I saw that post, man. You're wearing that T-shirt. You were going over the P&L for that steel business. I was like
Yeah,
mind blown, mind
yeah.
blown. Congrats to that one, though. Crazy,
I appreciate it. Yeah, most
crazy.
people think that, what really blows them away is they don't even think it's real. They're like, how can you buy this big of a company as just a normal person? And I say, I didn't know this existed until I came into it. And I say, like, people, don't just listen to me. Don't just listen to my post on social. Like, go do your research. There's thousands of these businesses being bought every year, and they're doing it in the same way and in the same structure. So I'm nothing special. I've just learned to do something that someone else 6 years ahead of me has done. And I didn't just take it for face value. I went and learned on my own that, wow, this is, not only is it doable, but man, it's really empowering, because now you're like, okay, well, what else could I go buy? And there's lenders
Exactly.
and banks and people that are like, hey, if you find something that's profitable, Josh, and you have a good plan and it's got a good team and it's been around a long time, we'll give you money for that, because they know they'll make money on that business and they'll make money off you.
I was going to ask you about that too, because I feel like you're five businesses deep, and I think your goal is to get a lot more, right? Roll ups with steel and industry and all that good stuff. I think when you're at that level, isn't it true? Like banks will just lend to you because you've already have a proven track record for 4 or 5
Yeah.
plus years now. You're paying your payments on time. You're acquiring these larger, revenue businesses. They'll just kind of walk you through the whole thing, and you're kind of
Oh,
set
yeah.
at that point.
Yeah, I always tell people, and this is what's the biggest challenge, Terry, is the first deal is the hardest. The first deal, you aren't proven. The first deal, lenders don't know who you are. The first deal, the sellers don't believe you can do it. The brokers don't believe that you can close. The first deal is the hardest. But if you follow the blueprint, if you stay consistent, once you get the first deal done, I have lenders reaching out to me weekly, like, hey, have you found any new deals for us to fund? Do you need any funding? Like they're constantly, I don't have to even reach out to them anymore. They're reaching out to me. And same thing with investors. Once you've proven that you can make someone a return on their investment, you have an investor for life. I mean, I've got my investors in my early deals that are like, hey, have you found any more deals? Like you're returning all this cash for me. You've given me all this return. I need to put it back. I need to put it somewhere else now. And so they want to put it in more businesses. And so it is true. Once you get, it's just, can you get deal one done? I mean, so many searchers quit because deal one is hard. It's hard. But for those that are like, I'm going to get a deal done, Josh, I don't care how hard it is. I know those are people that are going to do double digits worth of deals in the next 10, 15 years because it's hard, but most people will quit in this space. But if you can get that first deal done, money flows so much more freely and faster because you are proven. You do have a track record and you can show the success that you've created in other businesses.
That's cool, man. You mentioned, I didn't know the $5 million cap on the industry. You say you can go through other commercial loans and terms like that. Would you say those lenders would be like credit unions, local credit banks, or
It
is it
can
more like a
be.
national level?
Yeah, no, it can be. I mean, in fact, like I tell a lot of people, if you're not going to use SBA, your local community bank is one of the best places to go because they want to support small businesses. They want to support the community. The terms can be a little different. And so the SBA really has very favorable terms. You're gonna have a loan that's 10 years long. Now, some commercial or conventional non-SBA lenders, some will do 20 years, some will do 5 or 7 years. And so it's quite varied on the types of terms you can get with your local lenders, but it's really easy to pick up the phone and say, "Hey, I'd love to talk to someone in the business lending department around acquisition funding. And if you guys have that, what kind of terms did you guys have? I'm looking at buying a business in our local community." And so you're really just generating conversation that will at least let you have options. But again, for most of my students, they come to use our SBA lenders because they work nationwide. And then, and you're going to get so many more options with these nationwide lenders on the interest rate and the terms and the way they're going to structure the deal.
Well, I had a question regarding that. I think I learned so much from Josh from his videos, but it keeps popping up. As far as, lost my train of thought, Jesus. When you're buying these businesses, right, you have to qualify for them, right? There's a baseline. I think it's like a, what, 680 credit score. You got
Yeah.
to have liquidity, I think, some cash on hand as well.
Yeah.
Like you kind of have to meet some guardrails, I would think, no matter
You
what type
do.
of loans you get.
There's a couple of things, and it's not very black and white. Each lender is a little bit different on their qualifications. I would say probably the most major requirement is the credit score. So 650 to 680 is really the minimum, kind of depending on the lender, but 650 to 680. One of the things that we provide in the community is a lot of people come with bankruptcies or bad credit, and so we've got a credit repair company that we've partnered with in SMB Market to help people. Gives them a very clear plan. Hey, here's your score. Here's the steps to improve it. Here's the score that it'll be after you improve it. And that's really big for us and important. Then the next component is going to be what we call liquidity. So what they don't want to see is that you're spending every dime you have to buy a business, right? They want to see some what they call post-close liquidity. We have some lenders that only need you to have 1 to 2% of the purchase price. Now, and that can be gifts from friends and family. I've had multiple students that use investor funds and leave it in the
Mhm.
checking account to show it as liquidity. And then some lenders are more aggressive and want you to have 2 to 5% of the purchase price in the bank account. So again, the way that I get around that to do a low to no money down is just go get that from investors and let that be sitting in the account, your bank account, for 2 months. And they call that seasoning. Those are really the main financial qualifications. The big challenge that I think most people will struggle with if you get past that is, how do I articulate or tell my story to a lender to give them confidence as a first time buyer? So when we talked about people coming back to me for money all the time, it's because banks have seen what I've been able to prove. When you're trying to convince a lender why you, it's why I come back to that post close strategy. If you've already started to write that down, and you started to, when we put those thoughts down on paper, it becomes a part of our, what I call a talk track. So when you start having calls with brokers and sellers, you're going to
Mm,
have that talk track. When you get past brokers and sellers and you get under contract, that same talk track is going to be effective for the lenders. So having a plan and showing how your transferable skills will relate to that business, that's going to give the lender the biggest component, which is yes, your personal finances matter, but I've had a lot of conversations with lenders. Your personal finances matter about 15 of the decision. The other 85% of the decision is what's the business doing financially? How strong are the business you're buying's financials? And then what's your plan to actually take over that business? And so if you've given that a lot of thought, and you've put that down on paper. And I have a lot of students now where I'm like, look, just create the business plan in Claude or ChatGPT, like tweak it, but like create a nice, robust 10-page business plan with the business's background, with your experience, and then write in some prompts around how you plan to grow it, manage it, hire people, and then it will create something. And now you've got something to hand to a lender that's really, really powerful. On top of that, you've got that qualifications to really go through. And so those are really the key ones that if you think about, what I'm telling students to do early. So that one of the first things is create the buy box, right? Walk through post close strategy. The next component that I'll tell everyone to do is go get pre-qualified. We have an easy to use form to fill out for our community that gets them pre-qualified. And for most people, they're going to be like, well, is it a hard pull on their credit? No, it's a soft pull on the credit. You can
so,
even put on the form that you're going to use investors. So you'll get a pre-qualification amount. And so you fill out this form, takes like 10 minutes. In 24 to 48 hours, our lender will send you a pre-qualification letter stamped with their header and their title, the Go SBA loan, and it'll say we have pre-qualified Josh for 1 million or 2 million or 5 million. And now you take that letter to brokers and sellers and you just look so much more serious because brokers are really going to care about what do you fit with the seller. So another thing I tell students to create is a buyer profile. You've probably seen some of my posts about a
yeah,
buyer profile. We have a
yeah.
template that we create in Canva that makes it super easy for our students just to go put their own photo, put their own info, boom, it's a PDF. They send that PDF to the broker, they send their pre-qualification letter. And in a market like we are in now, where it's really competitive, how do we stand out? Well, we stand out by showing them we're serious and we can close financially with a pre-qualification letter. And we show how we're different by creating that buyer profile and what is uniquely different about us. Go to a length of what I'm doing with students now, which is I want you to put your buyer profile in Claude. I want you to put the business listing in Claude, and you're going to tell Claude to generate a buyer profile specifically for that business. Now you are personalized when you send that buyer profile to that seller. No one's doing this, Terry. Like no one that's not in a community is doing this, and that broker is going to look at this and be like, "Whoa, they really fit, and they can finance the deal." I'm going to if 50 people and I've brokered deals we'll get 150 people reach out about one deal. Well, how do
Mm,
you prioritize 150 people? You're going to put the people in there that you have the most confidence that they can close on the deal and also the people that are most fitting to this business. So a customized buyer profile does exactly that and the pre-qualification letter does exactly that. And so, the experiences that I've had over the years, not only buying, I've also sold my own companies, but then I've also helped people sell. And so just seeing every angle of this helps me become what I think is a coach that can really help them understand not only what they need to know on the buy side, but how they need to position themselves to relate to the seller and the broker because I've actually been on that side too.
exactly. No, I love it, man. How long is a pre-qualified letter good for anyway? When you get one?
It's at least a year. Funny enough, like I probably used my same pre-qualification letter for like 3 years. I got one from Live Oak about 4 years ago, and I was using it for like 3 years.
Okay.
It just depends. I will tell people like most people are like, well, I need to get my finances in order. I'm like, don't just get the pre-qualification now. When you get your finances changed, your credit score improves, you sell that property, you get more income, go do it again. But don't wait because at least you've got something now. And if it improves, you can go get pre-qualified again. It's free and it only takes 10 minutes. You go do it again and maybe you get approved for another 500,000 or 1 million more. And another thing on top of that, Terry, is my lender is really great to work with. If you're pre-qualified for $1 million and you find a business that's asking prices 1,200,000, and you're like, well, I don't really want to share my pre-qualification letter with the broker. They'll see that
I
I
was
can't
gonna
afford
say,
this business.
yeah,
You can send the listing to my loan broker and send your pre-qualification letter, and he'll update it for 1.2 because he's like, it's close enough. What we don't want people to do is think that the pre-qualification letter is all they can get approved for,
that's
because
what my
like I
question
said,
was.
the personal finances still are only 15% of the bank's decision when they give you a loan. So it's a range, but it's not a box. We don't want to keep people in a box of thinking, well, I got pre-qualified for $1 million, I can't go get more. If
Yeah,
there's a business
exactly.
for 1.2, even 10 to 20% more than your pre-qual, you go send that listing to our loan broker. They'll update the letter and send you another one for 1.2 so that you can now send that to the broker, and now you show that you can't afford it.
Well, what about it's like 3 or 4 or 5 million? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, at
It's
least not
harder.
that hard cap, but like, let's sit there and say you got to approve for one, and it's a great
Yeah.
business, different niche doing 3 million. All your buy box is all checked off, but you only got pre-letter for 1 million. Like, what happens?
Yeah, it's harder, but I still would go reach out to the Go SBA team. I would say, hey, I plan on using investors anyways for this 300,000. The gap may be, well, do you have enough liquidity? So what the loan broker may say is, well, can you go get some investor cash now and put it in the bank account so we can pre-qualify you? But I tell students, I'm like, it does not hurt to ask. You can at least go ask, because if it fits every one of your parameters, at least go see if you can get pre-qualified under this listing for that business and get a higher approval. But I tell people, if you get a no there, that does not mean stop. And this is the beautiful thing about acquisitions. If you get told no, and I get a lot of people that have bankruptcies or really low credit or no credit, and I say, here's what I would do. If I was in your shoes and I only got pre-approved for $1 million and no one would really pre-approve me for anything more, but I find the perfect business, I am going to work my ass off to go partner with someone that can get approved for that much. And here's how I would structure that. I'd say, hey, I am perfect for this deal. It fits my buy box completely. I will run the deal end to end. I will bring you in only as a co-guarantor. You can be passive, you can be as active as you want, but I've got this. I want X amount of equity. We'll split it. Now you're at least getting something versus nothing. And so
Yeah,
there's ways to solve that. And I've had several students that couldn't get the pre-qualification they wanted. They went and partnered with someone that had the cash or someone that had that partnership type pre-qualification, and went and bought a much bigger business, because now you can get pre-qualified with two people's income and two people's pre-qualification letters. And that to me is another really beautiful thing about joining a community. And one of the things we're adding inside of SMB Market is this community aspect. So we're going to be adding like basically a school effect. You can post, you can direct chat with people, and you will be able to partner with people that are inside we have 4,000 members now. You'll be able to partner with people that, hey, maybe in Florida, but they're looking for businesses in Texas. And there's people in Texas looking for money. They can find people in other states that are looking to invest in other people's businesses, and
gotcha.
creating more of that community. Because that's one of the biggest challenges people face is, I don't have the money, but I've got the hours. I can put in the sweat equity. But then you have people that have money, but they don't have the time. And so, how can we create a community that really connects the two needs together to create win-win solutions? And so, that's really what I'm trying to do with the platform, is to continue to create ways to connect more people and solve more challenges that they might be facing.
Gotcha. And that's what I wanted to lead to is your SMB Market platform. I think it's a great place for people to start. Like, what's the website? What's the URL? What can people expect from it? How can they find businesses? All
Yeah.
that good stuff.
Yeah, so it's SMB, like small medium business market.com. We offer a free 7-day trial on the platform. And then for your listeners, I'll give them a free month. So if they use the promo code month free, all caps, they can try it out for a month. And what I tell people is, if you don't find value in a month, don't continue. And if you're not seriously, going into it, you can still get so much in a month, because I do a live call every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern. We go through members deals. Yesterday was really fun. We have like a dozen members that are under contract on buying a business. And right now we're just going through deals left and right. So members will bring their deal, they'll bring the financials, they'll bring the SIM, which is a confidential information memorandum, like a 20-page PDF of the business, everything about the business. And we'll screen share and go live through it together. And I'll tell them my perspective. I'll ask them how it fits in their buy box. We'll go through the risk. We'll go through what I would offer in the price, how I would structure the deal. So even that alone, when we charge, so we charge $49 a month after the free month, it's $12.50 a week, 12 something a week. And if you're coming to those calls, I don't even really do one-on-one calls anymore, but I used to charge $500 an hour. I'm sitting here doing $12.50 a week and you get an hour. And
Yeah.
so on top of that, we've got a curriculum. So we got a curriculum teaching all the steps. And what's even better is if you can't make the live calls, because maybe that's a time when you're putting the kids down or you're eating dinner or whatever it may be, we record them all and put them on the platform. And so we've got an hour's worth of content where what I tell people is if you join in the first month, just go watch the calls. Don't even start searching. I mean, searching, like I said, like we need to worry about buy box and being clear about your strategy. But if all you did in that first month was watch calls, you're going to learn so much that it will give you the confidence to continue going. That if you just jump into searching, you're going to feel
Be
lost.
motivated.
You're not going to know what's going on, and you're going to quit. And so, what I love about the site and what originally was the site's purpose was when I was searching for businesses, I was going to like 50 websites. Everyone knows Biz by Sell, but what they'd be shocked to know is Biz by Sell only has about 30% of available listings. There's 50 other sites out there and they're all fragmented. So you got businesses for sale, you got Transworld, you got Viking mergers, you got accounting practices for sale, you got Acquire, you got Flippa. We pull all of those listings every day into our site. So whenever these sites add new listings for the day, that's my technology background. We go pull them into SMB Market. So you go to one place now and you've got 35 plus sites all right there. So we have over 100,000 active businesses for sale on the platform. And it's mostly the US, but we've got a couple of thousand, few thousand in Canada. We are going to be expanding into Canada, UK, and Australia in the next couple of years. Big demand there, but we're really focused, hyper focused on the US because there's just so much underserved. And so the most listings, a curriculum that's affordable. I mean, again, what I really was motivated to do, Terry, was I joined a group, Acquisition Ace, but it was thousands of dollars. Not everybody has that, and not everybody
Yeah.
can devote that to education. So I'm like, well, how can I make this extremely affordable? Essentially cheaper than one DoorDash a week. You can join this community and get enough information and enough content and enough confidence to go buy a business to change your life. And so I keep that price where it's at. The second thing of all the listings, but then we have in all the curriculum and education, I have easy to use calculators. So you've probably seen some of my live calls or my social media posts where I it's not just a loan calculator, it's an actual calculator that shows you if you factor in taxes and the debt to buy the business and savings in the business, how much am I actually making on this business? We also have another calculator where essentially you're like, hey, I've got a W-2 that I want to replace. I make 100 grand or 75,000 or 200,000. I've got a calculator where you put that in and then it auto populates how big of a business you need to look at to replace that W-2 really, really quickly. And so that's where a lot of people struggle is they think, well, I need to replace $100,000 W-2. I need a business that does 100,000 in profit, but they don't factor in the debt to buy the business, the investors they may have, the taxes. And so you actually have to look bigger. And so again, I continue as a searcher thinking, how can I continue to add value where I know I struggled as a searcher to make this process as seamless as it can be? And we're about to roll out, like, we're 2 weeks away from rolling out some really cool features. We're adding in more AI components because, again, you've heard me talk about using Claude multiple times. Well, a lot of people use Claude to analyze businesses, but their prompts are not conducive to creating standardization of the feedback. We've trained Claude in an AI model on 3 years worth of my calls and then all of my collateral and my content and my strategy into a model that can give them real-time feedback, an AI deal coach. It analyzes the deals in real time for them with my feedback on it. And then if the deal fits their buy box, we auto generate with AI an offer. We help them create an offer using AI. And so it's continually going to evolve this summer about how can we take someone from I'm curious in this process to I'm closing on a business in the most handheld way that feels like a coach is holding their hand, but at a price that's scalable and affordable to where any person, no matter what you're making in your day job, you could afford this and get a deal done.
Guys, you heard it first. I'll have the code and the links below. Josh, this has a deal for a lifetime. I think that's key for a lot of people out there, man. Josh, I've also seen on social media. How many kids do you have?
We just started trying for kids. So I have zero right now,
You
but I
have
have
zero? Oh, I've seen kids on your
eight,
profile. So I
my
probably
nieces and
wasn't paying
nephews.
attention. Okay,
No, no,
gotcha.
yeah, they're man, both. Well, my sister actually was trying to have kids for 8 years and went through a lot of challenges, and those kids are like my kids. They were actually
Okay,
in the
gotcha.
intensive care unit for like 6 months, and so all of those are her kids. My wife and I just started to we're just going down that pathway.
Going
So
down the
super
pathway.
excited. But what's really neat is I have a lot of students that have two, three, four kids, and a lot of people are like, "How do you juggle that?" And I tell them, my students that make that happen, they just find a consistent time, and sometimes that's inconsistently consistent, but they just 15 minutes here, 30 minutes here. It doesn't take hours a day. The misconception is it doesn't take hours a day to be able to do this. It just takes consistency. Whatever you can devote to doing this, just devote that much time, but stay consistent with it.
Gotcha. Well, Josh, you're very successful, man, on all levels, and you've gone through this road to this day. You're in your 40s, you said. What do you want to teach your kids when you have them so they can pass on to their kids and kind of you mold them into something great or to pass on so they're able to be okay and build wealth and all that good stuff?
I think the biggest thing is, so much greater than wealth is fulfillment. And I think fulfillment comes from feeling empowered to make a decision that's authentically for them. And it was really neat. I was watching a social media post today, and it's like first person view of this little kid that's on a motorbike, and the motorbike's running and he's shaking and he's like, I can't do this. I can't do this. But you hear in the background the mom saying, you've got this. You've got this. I know you're scared. I know it's hard, but you've got this. And then the video is first person view from the kid's helmet as he's driving, and he's repeating the mom. He's repeating what the mom said. I've got this. In third person, he's like, Matthew, you've got this. Matthew, you've got this. And he just starts crushing it and he just starts killing it. And so I think that's this. I told my wife, I was like, this is what I want our kid to feel, that
Hmm.
I don't necessarily tell them they need to go do this or they need to go do that. I want them to just know, because we're creating an environment of fulfillment, we're creating an environment of empowerment, that whatever they want to go do, that it really is unlimited. I mean, I'm a big vision board person. And 5 years ago, I created a vision board that within 3 years, I needed to update it because we had already accomplished all of it. My wife had horses. She had a garden. She hasn't worked. She doesn't, I mean, she takes care of me. It's a big job. Everything that we had wanted to fulfill. And so I'm just big on like, it pains me to feel people put themselves in a box that they can't accomplish something, because I'm really, truly at a place that I've watched people go from a non-believer of being able to achieve something to being able to literally go, I don't know what I want to do next, Josh, because I know whatever I want to do, I can go do it. And I want to be able to leave that impression, not on, just on my children, but on everybody, because like I said, I've been broke multiple times and I've got crazy stories that we can follow up on later that just show you like where I've really come from in the last 10 years. But it just a testament to really pushing yourself to think bigger and know that with hard work, with persistent and consistency, we don't get to control the timing in which a lot of those things happen. I'd been searching for a lot of years to find a business, but I never quit and I never stopped. And I just kept asking, could I do it differently? And I found a pathway. And I think that's one thing I want to tell a lot of people is your pathway is going to look different from other people. So don't pay attention to what social media is saying or how difficult or how easy. Have a goal, reach that goal, but be relentless towards it. And you'll know once you start reaching goals and you start getting that like self-fulfilling validation that, oh, I just have to set it and then be relentless toward it. It might take me 3 months. It might be take me 3 years, but I will never stop. And I think that feeling is what I would want to instill in my kids for their lifetime.
That's amazing, man. I love that. I love that. And Josh, where can people find you online to follow all your tips and tricks and everything about small businesses and
Yeah. So I'm on TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube Shorts, all the same handle. Founder underscore SMB Market, small medium business market, founder underscore SMB Market. I try to stay consistently posting there. I do TikTok lives. So for those that are like not ready to commit to a subscription, I do TikTok lives once or twice a week to continue to try to, add value to those that are just not ready to commit to a platform yet.
Awesome. Well, guys, you heard it first. The great Josh Wilson here. Please follow him. I'll have the links below and the promo code for a month try of smbmarket.com. Please take advantage. Josh, thank you so much for coming on, man. Appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Terry. Thank you for having me. Have a good day.
All right. Everyone, until next episode. Peace out.